It's not a spoiler alert. It happens in the very beginning, but the mother is killed, and Reese and her father basically just sort of go on totally different grieving paths. And mainly her father is of the path of avoidance and Reese is on the path of anger. She's angry at the world. And not only did she lose her mother, but because she lost her mother, they have to sell all of the horses and the horse farm and everything, because really the mother was the main part of the operation. And so it's like for a 14-year-old girl to be, to have the rug totally pulled out from underneath her and left having to rediscover who she is. Not only that, rediscover who her father is and what their relationship is. So the whole book, even though it's about horses, it's really about a father and daughter who have to navigate them back to each other emotionally after a tragedy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Purple Stars podcast. I'm Sarah, your host, and we have an amazing woman on the show today. She's an author, actress, and producer who has appeared in more than 20 films, including American Hustle, Joy, The Women, Tattoo, and The Forger. And let me tell you, she is not just a successful woman, but she is making the world a better place. And we are excited that she is sharing her inspiration with us on the show today. Please welcome Christy Cashman.
Hello.
Christy, I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Excited to be on.
Yeah, we are very excited too. Could you share with our audience where in the world you are currently at?
Sure. I'm at a little cottage in Kilkee, Ireland, which is in County Kildare. And I'm actually at the gate lodge to a castle called Kilkee Castle. So it's right in the middle of some of the best horse country, farmland in Ireland, and one of my favorite places to visit.
Christy, how long, or maybe a better question, when did this happy place find you?
Ireland? Oh my gosh. So I was living in New York. I was about 20 years old. This is a long time ago. And I was kind of just trying to make my way in the dark, as one does when they're in their early 20s. And I met someone who rode over here in Ireland. And I had never been out of the country. And he always went up to Pennsylvania or down to Pennsylvania to ride from New York, and would take the train every weekend, invited me along and said, oh my gosh, he said, if you like to ride, you need to ride in Ireland. So I came over with a group to Ireland all those years ago. And this was like, I want to say like 1990, and ended up coming over every year after that because I fell in love. I mean, not just with the riding and the horses and the countryside, but with the people. And some of my best friends live over here. So I feel really fortunate it's like kind of a home away from home.
It's one of the biggest blessings, I think, if we can find a home away from home.
Yeah.
It's such a privilege. I recently talked to Dr. Sarah Kubrick about this in a podcast, actually, especially, when being, she's a digital nomad, but I also think when you're traveling a lot for work and moving a lot of places, I think when you find a place where you say, wow, I call this my home, I think it's beautiful. And I love that. I mean, it has everything you need, and especially the horses. Yeah. And that's just so beautiful. And you shared already a little bit about your story, which brings me to my very first question. I read you're the second youngest of 10 children. I want to say again, 10. This is not a 10. Mistake, guys. Yeah. First of all, I think it must have been such a whirlwind having so many siblings and with so many different voices and personalities and lots going on. how did you navigate finding your own voice, your own personality, like what
Mm,
really matters to you, and also carve out your own path?
mm. That is an interesting question because I've thought about it before about what it means to be part of a large family. You know, that family, I guess, when you're a kid, it's like your tribe in a way. And um, I remember when I was really little and seeing one of my sisters was a really great piano player. Another sister was um, a ballerina. Another sister was an artist. I had a brother who was, you know, getting his pilot's license when he was 16. Another brother who another great artist, and I remember thinking, oh well, you know, my thing is horses. That's what you know, I just felt like that was my real estate. Is as a member of the family, you know, I carved out my identity as the one who loved horses. And my mom made me take piano, she made me take ballet and all of that. But you know, I couldn't get my mind off of horses. Horses were on the brain from the time I was probably like 3 or some ridiculous young age. And, you know, being the ninth of 10, I think also the other thing I was thinking about recently was just that you have a lot of different perspectives as a child in a large family because you have the view of being or I had the view of being one of the young ones. I also had the view of being a middle child because I had a brother who was older and a brother who was younger. And I also had the view of all of the different kind of drama that went on in the family when someone was in trouble, you know, how we rallied for them or, you know, kind of took sides and that kind of thing. And it's like this little microcosm of life when you're growing up right under one roof, you know. So I think it helped with my writing in a way because you know, being able to write from a solid perspective, a solid point of view as a writer is really important. And being able to write from a point of view that feels authentic. And so I think growing up in a big family like that gave me a lot of different perspectives.
And Christy, where did you guys grow up?
Well, I was born in Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a farm there. And then when I was 7, we moved to North Carolina, and I was basically, you know, raised in North Carolina. Left when after my mom died. I was 17 when my mom died, and I left about a couple years after that to go out to California to live with my sister.
And how is the dynamic in your family now that everyone is out of the house? Are you close? Like, are you chatting a lot, or are you closer with others? Or, you know, like full disclosure, I'm sure not
Yeah.
all the
So
siblings are listening. You can say
I
who's
mean,
your favorite.
we have a kind of a fun family group chat that, you know, when my phone starts to blow up, I know it's usually the family chat because there are about 30 people on it, nieces and nephews and lots of others, you know, wishing people happy birthday or letting us all know when, you know, something's gone on or someone needs extra thoughts and prayers and that kind of thing. And we also get together every Thanksgiving in which is November in the States, back in North Carolina. For the most part, it's usually about 70 or 80% of us. And then I always host a family reunion on Cape Cod and Chatham in the summer, in the end of July.
I admire and I really love that you are making conscious effort and making the time for reconnecting, not just on the phone, but actually meeting in person. Because I think, especially when having a family, regardless if it's small or large, but if people live in different places, it's about making a conscious decision and choice and saying it's my priority that we are getting together, that we are reconnecting in person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's beautiful. And is this where did this special family tradition come from? Is it from your from your parents, or has this been that something you have also seen from your grandparents?
Yeah, well, I think that it probably came a lot from my mom, well, and my dad, because when we were little, or when most of the family was, much younger, and we lived in Ohio, we would go every summer to our summer place in Michigan, which was a house that my mom inherited from her grandmother. And so that had a lot of meaning to my mother because um, not only that, my parents, when they met, my they didn't realize when they first met that they both had summer cottages within 3 miles of each other in this place in Michigan. So that just made so much sense for us all to go every summer because not only were my mother's family close by there, but my father's were as well. So it was not just our family, but our other aunt who has 7 kids and lots of other cousins would gather in that area every summer. And that would basically be a place we would live from, Memorial Day, end of May until the first week of September. And I know that when we stopped being able to go there as frequently, that was really hard on my mom. It was a very difficult transition to go from, this place that she had such a connection to and loved so much to really not being able to go as much, mainly because of financial reasons. And it was a much longer drive. I mean, when we lived in Ohio and we would go to our place in Michigan, it was just a 6-hour drive and, 2 station wagons and kids all, when our station wagon would pass people on the highway, the people in the car next to us would be counting all the kids to see how many were in there. You could see them pointing at us, counting. But so that change, I think was difficult on my mom. And I think that probably stuck with me and made me feel like we've got to make sure as a family, we connect and at least have these times that are set aside for everyone.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Do
Coming
you
from
have
a
a
big,
large family?
well, compared to you, for sure not. I have two. I have two younger brothers. I wouldn't say little because they're much taller than I am.
Yeah.
None of them yet have kids, so we're not that big. But I do have people that I also call my family that are not family by blood. So I do think I have a bigger soul family. Yeah.
Yeah.
That for sure. And
Yeah.
Christy, I'm wondering, coming from such a big family where connection is very important, what's your definition of family?
My definition of family,
Yeah.
I would say that I'm with you. I'm in that boat that I really actually believe that, you can have family that is your blood and your relatives and the people that you grow up with and have connection with from an very early stage. But I also feel like there are people that I meet and continue to meet who I have such a connection with automatically that it feels like I've known them all my life. And so they feel just as much like family as some of my brothers and sisters. And as far as extended family, I'd even say more so because there's that old saying, you choose your friends, not your family.
Absolutely.
And luckily I think I'm born into a situation where I would choose my family, and I think that a lot of people don't necessarily feel that way, but I do feel really strongly that I am continuing to meet people who I like to believe that my mom puts them in my path. My mom who passed away, I always feel like these are people that I'm led to from my mom. And and whether or not it's true, it's something that I believe in. So I just like to kind of like say thank you to her sometimes if I meet somebody like Jane Seymour, for instance. Our connection, I told Jane the other day, I said that I really felt strongly that it was my mom who made us meet.
That was actually one of my questions that we prepared,
Yeah.
because I heard in an interview where you said, ever since my mom died, I've always felt like I was meeting special people she was sending my way. Do you feel she is, because for me with my grandmother, for example, I feel the same, but I also
Mm.
feel she has eliminated a lot of people as well. So it's not
Mm.
just people sending, but I also feel she made space for
Mm.
the people that she does want to send later on. Did you have a similar feeling?
I hadn't thought of that really, but that's an interesting thought. I can see how that could apply to my life, for sure. You mean like kind of like she's looking out for you and saying, okay, well this person's not great
Mm-hmm.
for you to be around.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I can relate to that. I think it's
Yeah.
probably true.
It was very interesting. After she passed away, there were some people that I considered as my friends,
Mm-hmm.
and life proved me that they were not as much as I thought or as much as I
Mm-hmm.
would have liked to.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, oh wow, my Lola, I call her Lola because she was from the Philippines and that means grandmother. My Lola
Oh.
really is showing me, Sarah, you are worthy of having people in your life that love you, that support you, that cheer you on, and make sure you are picky who gets a spot in your life.
Oh
And
wow.
so she did go like a whirlwind
Mm-hmm.
through. Obviously, there some did show up for me as much as I thought they would, but there were
Mm-hmm.
some that didn't. And then it took a time, like the space remained open. And especially since I moved to the US, I just feel like she's bringing me all the people that are
Oh,
on,
I love that.
like my
Yeah.
cup of tea, and that just have a similar outlook, and where I feel like I can be who I am, and they
Mm.
don't want to, they don't like me for only when I'm, living life on their terms. And I think it's beautiful. And just while I'm saying this, I actually think that my Lola, the biggest thing she's actually done by doing that is making me stronger at my own core. And I think then the outside was just a reflection that I was,
Yeah.
like attracting people.
Oh,
So
I love that you have that connection to your Lola. I think that's really incredible. And I mean, I know because I know exactly what you mean. I really
mm,
understand where you're coming from. Um,
that's what
and
I
you would,
thought when I heard that, when you said that in the interview. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
yeah, no, go ahead.
I was also like, can we talk more about that connection? Because I think we can all have a deep connection with someone if we allow it. And we
Hmm.
can continue having that deep loving connection when they left their body. And I think some of the ways people experience it are through certain signs. For
Hmm.
some it's butterflies, it might be feathers or their lucky numbers, or you're like, let's say you're like driving to an important meeting and suddenly their favorite song comes on randomly on the radio.
Hmm.
So, or a rainbow comes. So I think there are like many different ways for our loved ones to reach out to us and also
Hmm.
to say, hi, I'm here. I'm here to comfort you. And I'm wondering, because you published an amazing book last year, which is called The Truth
Yeah,
About Horses. Has your mom sent you any special signs while you were writing that book?
absolutely, Sarah. Oh my gosh. I mean, I can't tell you how much, in some ways, I feel closer to my mom now than ever. And I also feel like it's going to make me cry, but um, a lot of people, a lot of authors or people who create things, I think feel like um, they've, in some ways given birth to whatever they've created. And I can relate to that too with the book because of it almost feels like labor pains, and it's such a struggle, and sometimes you really don't know what it is you're doing. Sorry. But for me, it wasn't so much that I gave birth to the book. I feel like the book gave birth to me. And what I mean by that is that, I feel like my mom, my writing the book was me trying to process losing my mom, I think, and me trying to process my expression of the fact that, well, how can I lose this person in my life who, was just everything? And how can life go on, and how can I still have joy? And I think that because I did go on, and because I did, have a life, a very I've had a very meaningful, full life. But it's being able to hold those two things at the same time, that tragedy is real and suffering is real and depression and all of those things are real, but also joy and beauty and just the fact that we exist in this planet. It's a miracle. And no matter, what tragedy you've had, it's still a miracle that we're existing, and that we're, spinning out here on this planet, out in the universe, and trying to find our purpose. So when I started writing, it was such a clear sign to me that it was something that my mom wanted me to do. She was pushing me, and I could feel it. And so I didn't know. It took a long time. It took me 9 years to write the book. I wasn't constantly writing. I was working on other things. Life happened. I was, I had a lot of different projects sort of that I was doing while I was writing the book. But I can just so clearly remember the feeling that almost like a voice in my ear saying, you need to write. And what's hard even though you hear the voice, you don't know what you're going to write. I just had, okay, I'm going to write this story about a girl. I know it's got to be in the world of horses because that's what I know. And I can write that very authentically. And a lot of the longing that I wrote from in the book is a lot about witnessing my mother's longing for that place in Michigan, because she longed for that house like it was a soul, like it was a human being, because I think she had it. And I think it goes back to her connection with it, and her connection with loving having all of the kids around and all of the cousins in one place, and just, having one thing to do, which is drive to the lake every afternoon, pile all the kids in the station wagon and drive to the lake. That's it. That was the big activity.
Christy, thank you so much for inviting us so much into your heart.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity. It doesn't always come out that way, but you, I think, brought it out. And so
before we dive deeper into the book, can you share what kind of person your mom was?
Yeah, so she was, I think you have to be just a special breed to have, pardon the pun, to have 10 kids, I had 2, and it was a lot, I still think, how did somebody just have baby after baby after baby? And, it's not like she's the only person, I realized that, but it still seems like, it just feels like so much to do and to take on. But she did it somewhat effortlessly. So she was a mother who didn't stress out about the little things. She encouraged reading and curiosity. She started a school when I was in the 3rd grade. She started a school in our church because she didn't like the way the public school system worked. And she had all sorts of different views of you know, she had all sorts of different interests, I should say, that she incorporated into the school. For instance, even though it was a Christian school, we had a Seder to commemorate Passover because she thought it was an interesting and, deep, powerful messages behind the readings. And so our school, celebrated a Passover. She brought us on walks, and she had a guy who taught us about all of the, if you were stranded out in the woods and you didn't know you didn't know how to get home, he taught us the edible plants and things like that. And she had a passion for learning and a passion for just being curious. And I think that that's something that she passed on, and that I more maybe embraced in my adulthood than I did when I was a teenager or even in my early 20s. I think I continued to learn and appreciate a lot of what she was about, even now.
I first of all, I can really feel your mom is around, and I think she's just so proud to hear that she's been a mother where the kids are happy to talk about her. I think that's a very, very big gift, and it explains, like, now that you shared a little bit about your mom, it explains a lot where all of you is coming from. Because, like, you are doing so much good and you're making the world a better place, and you are authentic and raw, and you bring a lot of faith and hope to the table. And yeah, and one of the many things is the book that I mentioned. Can you share a little bit what the book is about for those who haven't had the chance to read it yet, and also what they can expect to discover and explore?
Sure. The book is about a young girl. She's 14 years old. Her name is Reese, and she lives in South Dakota with her parents. And their family has a horse operation. They breed and train and sell horses. And early on in the book, they suffer a couple of tragedies, and one in which you learn very quickly. It's not a spoiler alert. It happens in the very beginning, but the mother is killed, and Reese and her father basically just sort of go on totally different grieving paths. And mainly her father is of the path of avoidance, and Reese is of the path on the path of anger. She's angry at the world. And not only did she lose her mother, but because she lost her mother, they have to sell all of the horses and the horse farm and everything, because really the mother was the main part of the operation. And so it's like, for a 14-year-old girl to be to have the rug totally pulled out from underneath her and left having to rediscover who she is. Not only that, rediscover who her father is and what their relationship is. So the whole book, even though it's about horses, it's really about a father and daughter who have to navigate them back to each other emotionally after a tragedy.
What do you think horses can teach us about healing when it comes to, because I think when we experience a loss, it's so much about walking back home and finding our way back home. And sometimes it's carving a new path back home. And that can be to ourselves, it can be to God, it can be to life. And in Reese's case, also to her father. So I'm wondering, like, what inspiration can we draw for moments and chapters like this from horses?
Well, I mean, I think one thing about horses and animals in general, is they don't necessarily judge things good or bad. That this good thing happened to me or this bad thing happened to me. They just know that they, have to go on with life. And I've always felt such a powerful spiritual connection to horses. Probably based on all of the books that I read from the time that from the first time that I could read. I was reading horse books and horse book after horse book after horse book. And I had such, in the books that I felt like I could feel the horse, smell the horse, touch the horse, when all of those senses are awakened, and then I actually got to have a horse on my own. It was like a dream come true. And so for me, horses have always been a part of living life's dream, having these amazing creatures that are that understand, I think, a lot more than we think they do. They're very sensitive, and sometimes so sensitive that I think they, on some level understand us better than we understand ourselves. You can walk out to the barn some days and tack up your horse and think that everything's all cool, and you think you're going to have the best ride of the day, and you go out and your horse decides, nope, that's not what's happening. You're on my back, and sometimes what they're doing, I think, is they're picking up on something going on in you that you haven't addressed yet. Whether it's something in a relationship, or maybe it's just something that you're not admitting to, or something going on in yourself, and I think they have a way of sensing that, and so it is a little bit like therapeutic, because sometimes when you ride, you're mulling over those things. It's a meditative thing to do sometimes, to just sit on a horse and ride, or forget about your problems and do all the things that are very challenging to you as an equestrian, and then all you can do is think about the next obstacle. So I guess what I'm trying to say is they're therapeutic for different reasons.
It's one of the one of the biggest reasons why this show exists is our belief that animals are one of the biggest teachers, and they hold so much potential for growth and love and patience and living life to the fullest. And I also call them a mirror to ourselves. So what you were explaining, very often they're showing us what's not at ease within ourselves, and whether it's something, as you said, we are ignoring, we're not aware of, we want to run away from. But they're like the most honest teachers.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
no way of escaping.
Exactly.
And how have animals, or in your case particularly horses, have helped you with finding after your mom passed away, finding your way back to life and back to love, and also maybe to your family? Because it seems your mom was greater than life person, and I can imagine when she left her body that there was quite a gap to fill, regardless of her being spiritually around. But how did horses support you and your family on that path?
Well, for me, my other family members aren't as much into horses as I was growing up. I have one sister who, kind of showed me around horses when I was little, and she's older than I am. But the other ones weren't as passionate about horses as I was. I think that what horses represented for me, though, was a consistency, because almost everywhere I lived after I left North Carolina, I would find a place to ride, and it almost just it did develop very organically. I'd be at a dinner, invited to some, birthday party, and I'd be sitting next to somebody who would say, "Hey, you're in the city. What do you do?" And I would talk about, well, if I could, I would ride. And then next thing I know, I'm being invited to go ride, at some place, some farm outside the city, or back when you could ride in Central Park. That was amazing. I got to do that. And then when I was out in California, I was riding at the Burbank Equestrian Center, and then I met someone who needed their horse exercised. And so I can definitely say that after my mom passed, horses represented a consistency. They were there, whether it didn't have to be the same horse, but just horses were just always seemed to be in my path.
I'm very grateful you brought up the feeling of consistency. I call it anchor.
Yeah, an anchor for sure. Yeah, that's it. That's a
And
really good word for it.
I think when we experience loss, and it doesn't even need to be someone dying, it can be from a very little age on, like your best friend is moving away, or
Right.
you're moving homes, or you feel a loss because the college you've been dreaming about, you didn't get accepted to, or the first big love relationship ends. There's so many ways we can experience grief and loss.
Absolutely.
And I think what I've experienced, and also what I've seen with my clients, the most important is to have an anchor. And everyone experiences a different anchor. But I think it's something we need to have, something we can turn to that brings us this stability, the sense of I'm not going anywhere. Because when we experience loss, our system is an alarm, and anything that changes in the beginning, or anything that could change, just triggers that loss and that fear. And that's why I think it's amazing that you have found your anchor, and also that you are sharing this with the world, because I just think it's so great to have something we can lean on. And I was also interviewing Ellie Lax, the Gentle Barn founder, and she said something beautiful. She also talked about a horse that brought back parts of her that she had lost as a child. And that horse already passed away. But she said whenever she forgets about her own strength, she meditates on the horse. So I think for all the listeners who feel drawn to something, whether it's a place, whether it's an animal or a tree, and you don't have the opportunity to physically be with that place or that tree or that horse, just close your eyes and get that feeling close to you, because I think we can have that anchor then wherever we go.
That's such a great thought, and I'm 100% sure it's true. Because then what horses led to me to were other anchors. Writing became an anchor for me because of my passion for horses and my desire to create a world about horses, and there's some symbolism and how they're such a great metaphor in a book. I then found that that writing and expressing myself through writing became another anchor for me. So it's interesting, when you follow those anchors, you find more of them. When you decide to, as you said, pursue the anchors and in a meditative state or whatever it is, I'm just convinced that more open up to you.
I just got chills when you said that. I so feel you with what you're saying. For me, my anchor is God. And I just see and feel and experience whenever I am close to him and allow him to be close to me. Yeah. He brings me all these anchors. And
I'm convinced also that that's, you know, my mom was a fiercely spiritual person, and she was a person who had so much faith, and I think that I never totally understood it, you know, growing up. I never totally understood what she meant when she would say certain things, but now I understand. And I understand how important it is. Just, you know, when you're growing up and you're little and you see somebody and they're talking about, you know, about the importance of prayer and the importance of believing in God and having a relationship really with God. You go through the ropes when you're small. You can't, you know, at least I did. You know, you're taught it, you sort of go through the ropes, but it doesn't really click in until when? Until you feel like your world's been a little turned upside down, you know, because that's when we're grasping for meaning. Because if in our lives, and I believe every great book or every great movie, the world, you know, has to be taken away in order to reinvent who you are. And that can be done, as you said, in so many different ways, whether your best friend moves or whether you lose a pet or whatever it is. But either way, no matter what, we don't grow until we have those challenges. It's impossible. And so those things are just as, you know, all of these things that we fear are really part of life, you know. And if we can accept them, I think I was saying that earlier about horses, you know, they and animals in general, they aren't judging. They aren't judging good or bad. They have instincts, of course, and they know to be afraid and all of that, but they just kind of roll with roll with life. We get caught in our heads.
And horses or animals in general have this amazing ability to feel and allow and express their feelings and emotions because they are not labeling them. And what do you think we can learn from, particularly from horses, about holding space for all our emotions, like the comfortable, the uncomfortable? I don't like to call them negative and positive because I think they're all important. Like I always like to imagine a rainbow, and a rainbow holds space for all the colors, not just the favorite one like pink or yellow, like all of them. And the rainbow is beautiful because of the totality of the colors. And that's how I see ourselves. We have this spectrum of emotions, and the more we allow ourselves to hold space for all of them and to feel them, the more colorful our life is, the more beautiful, the more vibrant. So, and also there's no rainbow without rain.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's a scene in the book where Reese flashes back to a time where she's driving along with her mother, and her mother would look out the window and crane her neck as she's driving and say, "Oh my God, look at the rainbow. You know, it starts there and it ends over there." And Reese is like, "Yeah, well, you know, I just finished a science class, and all that really is when the sunlight, when light is interrupted." And the metaphor for that is pretty beautiful. Like a rainbow only exists because light is interrupted, and it has to, and once it turns, when it bends, and once it bends, that's when you see those colors. So it's a pretty magnificent metaphor. I mean, I think that science is in, and then the mother says, well, just because you can explain it doesn't mean it's not a miracle. Which I think we have to kind of, let go of this idea too, that just because we can explain something doesn't mean it's still not amazing and a miracle, and, all of the things that make us just, kind of thinking that life is incredible. For some reason, I think there's this desire for some people, and for me included, to explain things away, to want to know things. We want to know things in a way so we can say, okay, I know all about that, and that's now I get that, and I don't need to understand that any longer. That's done, checked off my list. But I don't believe that's what our knowledge is supposed to be about. Our knowledge is supposed to be continue to stay curious, staying curious, I think, is the key to being passionate, because if we were curious about everything, you couldn't even walk out your door without being kind of blown away with our existence, just the mere fact that we exist.
First of all, I want to say what you said is on page 116.
Okay.
And the reason why I know this, I marked 2 pages and that was one of them.
That's so funny. Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't this amazing? I was like, no way, she's not going to talk about. And for the audience, I want to say the book has almost 400 pages. So it's not like it's like very easy that I got that page. Yeah. So I love that. That's amazing how aligned everything is in that interview.
Yeah.
And when we talk about answers and questions and curiosity in life, I think when I was like, I think like mid-20s, I was sitting next to a CEO on the plane, and we talked about my work. And at that time, I was coaching some of the world's best golf players. And he said, "May I ask you, you look very young and you're probably very young. What can someone else learn from you?" And he said that. But I didn't feel offended or anything. And he said, you probably don't have that much life experience. And I said, thank you for bringing that up. I said, like,
so gracious.
what is the definition and the meaning of life experience? Mm-hmm. And I said, it means I'm curious to experience life. Mm-hmm. And I said, yes, I am young, but I am so curious to experience life every single day, whether I'm talking to a kid or someone who's 50 or 80, whether I'm listening to a song, whether I'm reading the Bible, or whether I'm just on the plane. And I think that's the reason why I probably have more life experience than someone in their mid-50s. That's like hardly what I guessed what he was. And it was so interesting how our entire conversation immediately flipped. And then he didn't stop talking for like the next 5 hours. But yeah, I think it's this
blew him away with that answer. That's the best answer.
But I think
and you
like
were nice
having
about it too.
Yeah. Well, my Lola, she always said, always turn your cheek. Mm-hmm. And for me, like how I imagine it, when people are like shooting arrows, return them as roses.
Yeah.
So that was
It's very wise. You have a lot. You do have a lot of wisdom, I have to say.
But Christy, it doesn't mean that I'm always good with returning roses. Sometimes there might also be some thorns. But I am trying. I am really trying. But like, I think, life is magical. And as you said, just because we might have some scientific proof for things and certain answers, like there is like life never fails at amazing us if we allow it to surprise us. And I always say, treat life like your birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Like, be excited and also expect some great things to happen. And just because you maybe already asked for something that you want for that birthday, be excited. It might be a different edition of the book. It might be wrapped differently. It's just like, let life surprise you. And my biggest mantra in life is, and I hope my audience doesn't get annoyed by me saying that again, is life is my friend.
Oh, I love that.
And that doesn't mean everything is positive and always like happy, but it means life is helping me to move through whatever is coming my way.
Yeah.
And life brings me the people, the signs, the books, the podcasts, and all the anchors, what you said earlier, to like be okay, whatever storm is coming my way. And then also believing in hope and believing in hope until I can feel it again. So yeah, that's just my life mantra. Life is my friend.
Well, that's beautiful, and I love that, and I'm going to adopt that because I have some, mantras as well, but sometimes hearing it in a new way is really helpful because the old words can become like almost like a tree in your backyard. You stop seeing it, you stop hearing it. And so I love that, and I'm going to adopt it. I think it's really profound and it's simple. But most things that are profound are simple.
It is so true. What are some of your favorite mantras?
Let's see. Well, I have a prayer that I say every day. That's basically just saying, that I'm powerless and that I'm giving everything up to God, because I don't, everything that I understand and all of that is probably not what is true in anyway. So it's kind of a long prayer, but it has been used as my mantra, as well as attempting to let go of fear and let in light. That's kind of, I meditate on that a little bit, letting go of fear and letting in light. There are a couple other things that I do. I started kind of recently keeping it's not a mantra, but it's something, a start of my day that's really important. I feel like it sets me off on the right place. I keep a gratitude journal, and I try to write what I'm grateful for before I start my writing, in my manuscript. And that's helpful. Although I will admit some days it's very hard. It's really hard to because I wake up in a mood. I wake
As
up
we
in a
all
mood,
do.
and I'm like, my body is stiff, and my head hurts, and all these things. And so, but it makes me shift into a state of gratitude. And that's what I like about it. So shifting, anytime you can shift into a place of gratitude as opposed to complaining, is, I think, a really good thing for life as well as for a creative endeavor.
I am very happy you brought up that there are days where it's not that easy. And I personally think it's not about feeling that deep, joyful gratitude that makes us dance every single day, but knowing that we choose to feel gratitude, even if that feeling comes a few hours later, or maybe a few days later, a few weeks later. Because I do believe when we are experiencing a tragedy in life, as much as we want to be grateful, maybe it takes some weeks and months to really feel that again. Because I remember when my Lola passed away, it took me a long time to really feel that gratitude again. And I remember praying to God, and I said, God, I'm going to look out for all the good things and acknowledge them, at least with my eyes and my ears, till I can really see them and feel them with my heart again.
How old were you when she passed away?
26.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I so deeply love her.
Mm-hmm.
And she had stage 4 cancer. But similar to what you said earlier, the journey we had together, especially the last 2 years of her life, also all the years before, but particularly those 2 years, really shaped my faith.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that was the time when I really started to understand, as much as you can understand, what it means to pray. And to pray
Mm-hmm.
from the heart. And sometimes Tanner Olson, I interviewed him recently, and he said something so amazing. He said sometimes prayer is just sitting in silence, because sometimes
Mm-hmm.
the grief is so loud that you don't even know what to say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I experienced there. Prayer can look so different. And I love what you said in the very beginning in your group chat with your family, that you also offer thoughts and prayers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, not just I think, I feel when we pray for others, it's one of the most beautiful ways of showing our love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. It's energy, you know, it really
Mm-hmm.
is. I think it really is probably a science that eventually they'll be able to figure out that it really does work by putting, you know, the energy out there. I also heard something interesting, which I really felt was true during my writing process, was that prayer is oftentimes talking and asking for something, and meditation is listening. And that became really true for me during writing, because even though I would begin my day with, you know, with my little rituals, then it was often the lying down and, you know, covering my eyes and music on or not. It was just quieting the mind and listening that kind of uh, brought clarity for me for the next step in my book. If I was stuck in a place for a long time, sometimes I would sit and meditate all day and I wouldn't write a word. But I knew that there was something going on in my subconscious. And so I believe that writing comes from your subconscious. I think creating comes from our subconscious. And so really I was trying to find that really, soft whisper of my subconscious and clear the noise, like your friend said, because life is noisy, grief is noisy, even happiness is noisy. There's a lot of that chatter that goes on. But when you create, it's really about getting to a place that is more about taking yourself outside of your circumstances, right? And feeling getting in touch with the feelings that come out of meditation, and really quieting the mind. What is the subconscious trying to say?
I'm not surprised that you are, by everything you have said right now, that you are, what a fantastic mentor you are to a lot of passionate teenage creators out there. It leads me to one of the amazing things you're doing. You're the founder of a nonprofit, YouthINK, and you connect passionate teenage creators with leading industry creatives to provide a supportive, encouraging, and nurturing space for mentorship and artistic expression. Can we talk a little bit more about it? And also, I would love to know, in the end of your book, you said that you thanked your Uncle Ernie for reading a letter when you were young and telling you you needed to write.
Yeah.
And was this positive reinforcement maybe even one of the seeds that grew into the tree of YouthINK?
Absolutely. I remember exactly where he told me that. It was at my grandmother's funeral. So Uncle Ernie was my father's dad. And we were at my grandmother's funeral, and I had been living in New York. And so I'm not sure if I was out in LA yet, but I would write these long letters home, like 6, 7 page letters. But then I would Xerox them. This back in the days of Xerox. You might not know what a Xerox is.
I was about to say, what is that?
It's a copy machine. It's basically made copies.
That is so funny.
But can you imagine, what was it that I was thinking that all of my family will be so interested in what I'm doing? It was obviously I was just writing because I wanted to write. And it was probably wanting to connect to my family. I would send them out to my parents. My mom had passed away, but my dad and his and my stepmother, grandparents, brothers, sisters, but they would all get the copy. It would just be a copy of a letter, of this 6-page letter. Well, my guess is most of them ended up in the trash, but Uncle Ernie read it. And after he read it, he probably received a couple at the time. And it was then that he said, he came up to me at my grandmother's funeral and said, I've really been enjoying reading your letters. You write beautiful prose. And I said, and he said, you should write. Mm-hmm. And so, when there are those little things that you look back on it at the time, I didn't know what he meant. I should write. What should I write? At the time I was writing letters and I was writing in my journal, And then there was another time when I was a sophomore, second year in high school, and I wrote a poem that ended up I remember getting it back. And I was never a great student. I did like English most, and I liked literature, but I remember getting back the poem, the paper, and it had A++ on it. And I remember my heart going, did I get the right paper? I remember thinking, is this somebody else's? Is this someone else's? But those two moments, they're few and far between, that I received positive reinforcement, as you said, in two different circumstances, very far apart from each other. But when I look back at them, they probably steered me or pushed me into the writing world. And my mom's passion for reading and giving me great books when I was little. But those are important. And that is a mentor. You can be a mentor to somebody and they don't even know it, you can, because I think that's why, I'm sure you're a mentor to many people based on the things that they hear, because it's so important to hear these positive things about life and spirituality and what a gift life is, as opposed to what you might see when you turn on the news. So thank you for doing what you're doing and being the person you're doing by getting this, your beautiful insight out into the world. It's really important. I can't stress that enough. And so the mentorship program that I started is called YouthINK. It's sort of a play on words, YouthINK. It can be YouthINK, as in what young people write, or it can be YouthINK, as in you think of something. And I like those types of little puns or whatever. And it was started because of the fact that I saw how important mentors were to me when I had a very rough draft of my manuscript, and I gave it to a woman, a family friend named Betsy Horst. She read it. She started crying. She said, "Can I give it to Arthur Vanderbilt, who was her friend?" He read it. He sent me this email that said, you've got to try to get this published. This is brilliant, blah, blah, blah. Things that, were like hearing, it's almost like hearing bells go off when you work on something really hard and you hear that kind of feedback. And it's like ding, 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 it really is like that. But it's so needed because you're really kind of out writing in the desert, and not getting feedback and not really getting any kind of pat on the back because you don't know what you're doing necessarily. You're working on something that you have no idea is going to have any resonate with anyone for that matter. So when I got feedback from Betsy and Arthur, and then Arthur sent it to Joyce Carol Oates. And Joyce Carol Oates is a huge, just prolific author who has written so many amazing things and teaches and is so many authors mentor that, and she's rather iconic, that when I received feedback from her, I was, I guess what you could say is that I felt like I was on the right path. And there's nothing better in life in some ways when you embark on something and you try something that you realize that all of the signs are saying you're on the right path.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it felt like. And that's why mentors are important, because mentors are those signposts for people, because we're all just trying to make our way in the dark. We're all just trying to come up with something in a way to give ourselves purpose. And that's, we are creators because, we're just born that way. Fully believe we are born to be creators, but you can be a creator in business. You can be a creator in as an engineer, as a contractor, a construction worker, we create. We're here to create and express ourselves. I firmly believe that. And so to be able to have the luxury to do it and then feel like I'm on the right path in executing it is a gift. It's a huge gift.
Christy, and how do you and other mentors help those young, passionate creatives to also, first of all, to trust their voice, to have the courage to use their voice and share it, and then also helping them to really hone that feeling of being on the right path? Because I love what you said. Sometimes we're creating it out in the desert. And we don't know when is the next oasis coming. Is it ever coming? Is it ever coming?
Yeah.
And you are the water very often for those creatives till they can be their own water.
Absolutely. So we provide the space. I have I founded it in Ireland simply because we own the property that I can easily have, 20 to 30 kids here to experience a weekend of art, being immersed in creativity and art and all of that. But what we have tried to do is we've just tried to throw everything at them and see what sticks, from writing to making movies to plays to puppets to musicals to costume design, fashion shows. I can't even count them. We've done so many of them, but it's providing a space, a safe place for them to find their voice as an artist and to then take that and grow with it. Now, finding your voice is scary but the only way to find it is to try new things. I had to write my way to my voice, I had to write a lot of stuff before the voice of Reese came to me. And then once I found her voice, I was off to the races. Pardon the pun. I could write. I knew I could write. I knew with her voice really in my head, and the more she became, three-dimensional for me, I could write her voice all day long, and that was the fun part, But for the young people who are part of the program, it's really just about giving them the space to in a way, fail, in a way, fail in a safe place and know that it's okay, because all you have to do is start over again, pick yourself back up. I mean, how many pages do you think somebody writes in a novel that actually end up in the novel? I probably wrote 3 times the number of pages during the writing, maybe 4 times, maybe 5 times. I don't know, but you just have to keep trying, and failure is as much part of success as in the journey.
It's so true. Like, how many painters are selling their art and they have like hundreds of them in their basement that never ever anyone gets to see. It's the same with people that do photography. I remember when I published my book, and it's not even that long. It's a selection of poems and letters to and about my grandmother. And it's, I think, maybe 130 pages, but oh my God, I filled journals and journals and journals. And it's very similar to what you said. Like, we have to write ourselves. We have to write in order to find that voice. Because I think a lot of people have this romantic idea, oh, it would just suddenly come to me.
Yeah.
And I do believe it does suddenly come, but only when we like walk the path before that.
Absolutely. I know. I mean, for me, if I thought it's just going to suddenly come to me and that's when I'm going to start writing, I never would have written, no, I might have written, but I wouldn't have finished it, because you really have to show up for the creative energy to find you. And sometimes it's not every day. I remember not finding the zone, or feeling like I wasn't in the zone for some months at a time. But a great expression is write your way through it. If you have writer's block, how do you get rid of writer's block? You write.
Yeah. And it's like, I never wish I was younger, but for a split second, I thought, man, I wish I was 16. I could go to one of these weekends because it sounds so amazing. And I think the biggest mentorship is really showing those teenagers and saying, hey, that's the perception what you have of being an artist, showing them the limiting beliefs, the things that hold them back, and like saying, okay, you got to show up for it to come to you.
Yeah.
Like, embrace your unique voice. It takes practice. Be willing to be bad at something. Learn as you walk. And
well, then, you know what? I think, why don't you come and do one of our workshops for us sometime?
Oh my God, I would love that. I'm totally coming to Ireland.
I'm fully convinced that you would be amazing at that. I think
I would love that.
You're a teacher. I feel like you're a teacher.
Thank you, Christy. Yeah, I would really love that. Definitely, let's talk later about it, because for me, one of my biggest passions is inspiring teenagers and also people in their 20s. And I love like sharing my experience, not because I think I'm like very wise, or also because I would have listened when I was younger, but because I would not have listened to myself when I was younger. That's maybe a better way. But same as you, I had mentors, and I was I have been in the very fortunate position that my parents are such amazing life mentors. And also that so I had the privilege of being a competitive golf player when I was a teenager, which has taught me so much. And God has just sent me so many amazing people along the way that shared their journeys, their stories, their experience with me. And he gave me the curiosity and also the bubbliness to experience all of that. And I just want to, if there is one thing that I can do, if I can help people to fall in love with life and to trust that life is their friend, and to have the courage to live a fearless life. And I don't mean fearless as in not fear. at all, but fear, and then in capital letters, less. I think then when I look back to my on my life, I can be like, okay, I think I made the world a tiny bit of a little bit of a better place. So if I can come to Ireland, I would love that.
I would love for you to. I can't. And now knowing that you golf, because we're on a golf course too, you could.
Oh my God,
you could
that's
incorporate.
amazing.
You could maybe incorporate like a golf lesson and the zen and the art of playing golf.
Oh my God, that is amazing. I love that so much, Christy.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. For sure. I am. It's so funny you're saying this, because I already felt like before we head out into it, I was like, I think we're going to build a bridge, and this is just like some seeds, and there will be something we're doing together. I already I totally
this is
felt
the beginning. I feel it too.
That is the beginning. And Christy, I could talk to you for hours, and we'll have you back on the show. I'm 100% sure that we'll have you back.
Great.
Before I let you go, we always finish every episode with a little animal Q&A, and your very first horse, Rambler. I would love to dedicate that Q&A to him, if that's okay.
Yes. You're going to make me cry again, but yes.
Oh. What is... well, I will have a mix of funny questions and deep questions, and we'll finish on the funny one. So the first one is, though, what is one of the many reasons you're grateful for him?
He was a teacher. And he let me learn a lot about life in a safe place. You know, the joys, the frustrations, the anger even. He provided a classroom in a way for life's joys and disappointments when I was really young.
Thank you so much for sharing this. And if you could ask him one question right now, what would it be?
How do I find and keep that passion for life that he taught me?
Another amazing thing Ellie Lax shared on our podcast episode was she sees it as a torch that gets passed on from animal to animal. They had one cow called Buttercup, and she was teaching others how to hold space when they're grieving. And I am sure Rambler also passed on the torch to all the horses that you met magically along the way, to spark that passion in you, to give you the courage to also share this with so many people out there. And I think he's making sure you get all the help along the way to keep remembering, if sometimes maybe you forget about it, that you have it in you, and that you life loves you, and you are inspiring others to love life too.
Thank you, Sarah.
And now comes the funny question.
Okay.
So every animal has something, or some, even a lot of things, where they do something embarrassing, or where they feel like they embarrass themselves, but they kind of hope no one has seen it. Can you think of a situation where Rambler just felt like, oh my God, I hope no one sees it? Or he did notice someone else experienced and, like, unfortunately was a witness of it, but he was very embarrassed for it.
That is a very funny question. So is this a time when I was with him, or who's embarrassed, him or?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. So some people and guests on the show share the times that they were embarrassed themselves.
Yeah.
But also when the animal was embarrassed. I'm happy you share both, whatever you like to say.
Oh my God. One time I was taking Rambler from our house in North Carolina to this camp where I was going to be teaching horseback riding and taking care of the horses. Well, I didn't have the money to put him in a trailer or to pay somebody to take him in the trailer, so I had to ride him there. And it's probably about a maybe 12 to 15 mile journey from my house to the place and to the camp. And on the way, we passed the high school. And in the high school, my brother at the time was like a junior or a senior. I think he was a senior in high school. And I thought, well, I'll just ride Rambler right through the school grounds because he's there and that'll be funny. Well, I walk into the parking lot and the doors to the science wing, the buildings were all in different wings. They were wide open. And I was like, I'll just bring him right in there. So I brought him right into, like, literally the hall of the school where there are lockers on either side. And what does he do as soon as we walk in?
Oh my God, no.
He takes a giant poop. Right?
This is hilarious.
And then the principal comes, like, the janitor sees, the principal comes running out. He tells me I've got to leave the property. But there was no leaving fast. So we just clopped right through the hallway out into the breezeway. And I could see all the kids looking out from the classrooms, like, it had never happened before, a horse walking through the school. So, so I think Rambler wasn't so embarrassed about, having to go to the bathroom in the school hall. I thought his timing was bad, to be honest. I thought he could have waited maybe just a few more steps till we were out in the.
Oh,
but
I love.
It,
I love this
miles
so
and he decides
much. Well, I think now you can see why this is one of my favorite questions because everyone has such a funny story to share. And we dive into so many areas throughout the interview. And I always want everyone to leave on a happy note because I do want them to come back onto our show, So I thought, what could be the funniest question? So they remember not the tears and the things where they felt uncomfortable, but the things that made them laugh. So I think I did a great job with that question.
I think that was perfect. And I wasn't even thinking about that, to be honest, until you said that. And I thought, yeah, that was pretty embarrassing.
So it's just so funny. I love that. Christy, I am so glad that we found each other. And I would say, my Lola and your mom, well done for connecting us. I'm excited when I get to meet you in person, wherever that's going to be in the world. And thank you for sharing your voice with us and giving a voice to those who don't have one. and maybe also to those who are still a little bit scared to share theirs. And I'm just so glad we had you on the show. Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed meeting you and talking to you, and thank you for the opportunity. And also thank you for the, the place where I felt comfortable telling you some of the stuff I wasn't necessarily prepared to talk about, but you made it comfortable for me.
Thank you so much for your trust. And I want to say one more thank you, because I didn't want to interrupt you earlier. Thank you for the kind words you shared about me being a mentor and me inspiring others. I'm always so grateful, and you're very good at making people feel seen and heard, and also that they matter. So thank you so much for also sharing that gift with me.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
We're going to make a plan.
Yes, oh, absolutely. 100%. We'll schedule right away after that interview.
Okay.
It's a wrap for today, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved that episode as much as we did, please share it with your family, with your friends, anyone that needs inspiration and also comfort and wants to fall in love even more with horses. And don't forget to tag both Christy and us to keep the conversation going. And we're excited to have you back next Wednesday.